got you on here, Sam, because I think you're one of my friends who's got a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Appreciate that. I would hope so.
To start with, you've recently started a creative pursuit.
Yes.
So you've started to, and to my understanding, you've been artistic your whole life, but you've really started to try and pursue something in that realm. Do you want to talk us a little bit through it?
Yeah. So, well, where do I begin? So, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, is when I started delving into being a creative kid. Obviously, all kids sketch and scribble with pens and whatnot. But on a holiday down in the south of England, my uncle taught me how to replicate something by drawing it. So, I had a little army figurine in front of me, and he kind of showed me how to try and replicate that on a page. And I set about doing that. And then I think I remember getting the acknowledgement from my parents and saying like, "Oh, you've done a good job there," or whatever they said at the time. And I guess I just had a natural knack for copying things with a pencil. And obviously, it progressed through the years. I studied it at high school. I did art, and primarily I was just doing pencil portraits for most of my life. That's what I had a passion for, and kind of realized that it was going to be nigh on impossible to make any kind of career from that because it's a bit of a niche.
Is it also like time consuming to how long it takes to create a realistic drawing? It makes
Yeah,
it
like
hard to make money.
a decent size, like an A3 portrait of someone, that would take, 40, 50, 60 hours. And obviously, trying to charge someone to pay me what I think is suitable for a pencil portrait of that size is just not realistic. Um, so it was always like a little passion hobby that I did on the side just to kind of keep my skills. But I haven't done a drawing for quite a while, but I suppose it's because of my more recent artistic venture that you're nodding to. Um, and this was last year in February. On Instagram, I saw a chap in the US of A doing what's called tufting, and with my English accent, a lot of people are confused even what the word is. But tufting is essentially with a handheld sewing machine, and you stitch yarn through a canvas, uh, and it kind of creates an awful mess on the other side of the canvas. But then with clippers or shearers, you go in and carve it out. So it's almost like a combination between a painting and a sculpture in a way. So I've been doing that since last February. I just thought, you know what, I'll give this a go, see what it's like. Loved it straight away. Got a great response when I posted the first one on Instagram. And I thought that there could really be something here that's a bit more of a realistic, uh, you know, money making pursuit in terms of it's going to be potentially a sustainable sort of artistic venture that could, earn me a little bit of money on the side. So yeah, it's been going pretty well. I've had a few commissions, a few big ones this year. More recently, just this week, I got a commission from a lady who's asked for her second piece now, which is massive. It's 2 by 2.3 meters.
How long
So
is that going to take you to do? It's a quite a hefty pursuit.
yeah, so the last one I did for her was 1 by 2 meters, and that was roughly 36 hours. So I would be anticipating 70 hours. But then again, every time I do it, I get a little bit better, a little bit quicker. So I would hope that I can do this a little bit quicker. So yeah, somewhere around 70 hours. She needs it by the 15th of July, so I'm going to have to get started on it pretty quick.
Get cracking.
Yeah.
So, what's your approach to doing these pieces? I know you work full time as well.
Yep.
So, are you attacking it every day, or is it you're trying to smash out a lot on the weekends? Both? What is it?
Well, now it's a bit complicated because my fiance and I just bought our first house together. We moved in last week, so obviously a lot of my time is it's either working full time, going to the gym, doing renovations, or doing my art. So at the moment, I'm trying to find a balance. So I'd say majority of the weekends I'm doing my art. Uh, Weeknights I'm kind of helping more around the house with the little parts of the renovations that we're doing at the moment. So that's kind of the split. But previous to the house, I was doing it more or less every night after work when we were in our previous residence, yeah, it was every weeknight more or less, and then when I had time on weekends. So
So there's a book on art that I've heard about and I read, and it's cool by Stephen Pressfield, like The War of Art, and he talks about attacking creative pursuits as like you're doing the work. You approach it every day. You approach it as a professional. It sounds like when you're at least got a piece that's on the go, you're attacking it every day. Do you find that helps you or it helps stimulate the creative process? Or is it just you've got the idea before you start attacking the work? Like, do you sit down and try to sketch out pieces prior to starting a project and attack it every day, that kind of thing?
yeah, before I was getting commissions, it was all obviously just my own creations, whatever I wanted to do. So I would spend a bit of time uh, sketching out ideas, what I would think would work with the material, because obviously yarn is it's not a stable material by itself, so you have to compact it in a very small area um, to make it a workable material on the other side, to make it kind of have its own body and hold its shape. So certain ideas that I was sketching out, I realized wouldn't translate to the tufting because you can't have really skinny lines, for example. So before commissions, yeah, I would just spend a bit of time sketching out ideas, whatever I thought would work, and then I'd give it a go. It wouldn't be for anyone. It would just be more of a, I guess, a practice of my uh, skill with tufting. But now that I've got commissions, obviously it's catering to the client's needs, whatever they've asked for. Uh, Sometimes they've got a clear vision of what they want. Sometimes they just give me a color palette. So it's a little bit more work in terms of sketching the idea, liaising with them to make sure I'm, going to create a piece that suits their space, wherever that is, if it's they're in their home, their office, or whatever. Um, so yeah, initially it was a lot of sketching, but I suppose more now that I understand how the tufting and the carving works in the final process, I understand what you can and can't do on paper first, like what's not realistic.
Um, do you find it as satisfying doing this style of, I don't know, how would say art, creative pursuit? Do you find the tufting, the combination of both the creative aspect of creating a piece and then like physically putting it together? Do you find that I don't know extra satisfying, like a I guess like a sculptor would, where they're actually physically manhandling a piece and actually creating it into what you're envisioning?
Yeah, it is. It's actually very satisfying because it's very different, obviously, from what I was speaking about before, pencil portraits, replicating a face that I recognize and just basically turning it into black and white. So there's not a huge difference. Whereas this, my idea is nothing. There's no tangible thing there to begin with. And then once I do the work and tuft it, um, thread it through the canvas, on the other side it's a complete mess, just yarn everywhere. You go in with the clippers, shave it down. So there's a real satisfaction in terms of tidying something up. I'm someone that my fiance might think this is a lie, but I enjoy tidying things and making things, either back to the state that they were in before it got messy. So there's a satisfaction in that, but there's a great satisfaction in every day seeing this thing come to life. And certainly by the end of it, when you get a polished, honed sculpture made of yarn, yeah, it's very satisfying.
So part of the joy is the precision of cleaning it up and
Yeah,
making it
yeah,
the
and
vision you had in your head.
absolutely. And when I look back now to the first few that I did, and I'm like, God, back then I thought that they were really good, but now after the year or so that it's been of practicing almost every week, my skill has gotten better at it. My ability has improved. So they're certainly much sharper, tighter, uh, and more refined pieces. Whereas before they were quite messy in hindsight. So it's also very interesting and satisfying to see my progression from the first piece, which is an absolute mess now. I mean, may as well be a bed for a cat. It basically is the cat that we had just slept on it a few nights. But yeah, to see the progression from the first one to the most recent one is really cool.
Was it something that your parents pass on? Do you think that your parents are quite creative? They pass it on to you? Is it more just it was within you and you just started doing it? Like, where do you think it comes from?
It it comes more from my mum's side of the family. My mum's an incredibly creative and talented person, as many people would attest to. She doesn't give herself enough credit. She's been a florist, a painter, and decorator. She currently refurbishes old furniture. She did wedding stationery. She painted murals on my bedroom wall as a kid. Um, but she doesn't give herself enough credit for that. So my creativity certainly comes from her side of the family. Um, my papa, mum's dad, he was a carpenter, so obviously very good with his hands. My dad's side, not so much. So it certainly comes from mum, but she would say to herself that she couldn't draw like I used to do. Um, but in many other areas, she's very very creative for sure.
It seems like your creative niche, it's both like pure inspiration,
Mm.
but also precision, which maybe isn't always associated with artistic pursuits. Maybe more painting and things, but I don't know. There's something in me that, for some reason, there's a polar opposite in like creativity in precision, but I don't know if that's just my own like preconception of it.
Yeah, I suppose it depends what little niche of art you're going down. There's certain painting styles which have got nothing to do with precision whatsoever. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the trends in the art world at the moment popping up on Instagram videos and whatnot. People just throwing buckets of paint that spiral. Very creative, and some people
Well,
think it looks amazing, um, but there's certainly no precision involved. So I guess there's certain avenues of art that require precision. I would suggest that the niche that I'm working in at the moment requires an awful lot of precision, because when you're stitching with the handheld gun, as I said, on the other side of the canvas, if you stray off path, it's going to be, it has a knock-on effect for the rest of the piece. So what I do is I draw out the template with a pen, and I have to basically color in between the lines. If I go outside the line, it throws off the look of the whole thing. So yeah, there's a lot of precision in many different areas of the work that I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, I would say there's plenty of areas of art that don't require any precision whatsoever.
you do have a bit of a background in architecture as well. Do you think the decision to go down that route initially was part of a creative pursuit? You thought it would be something that would perhaps satisfy this
Definitely.
creativity within you?
Yeah, as I said, starting out when I was like 5 or 6, drawing, and I loved that. I knew I wanted to do something that was creative. I loved doing drama in high school, all those kinds of things. I never imagined I would be, the typical 9 to 5 office job. That didn't really interest me. Although I did go into studying business to begin with at university when I was, I think, 18 or 19. I was so consumed by making money. I thought that, studying business would allow me to make a certain amount of money. I quickly realized that it didn't matter how much money I was going to make, I was just not going to enjoy it. So I backed out of that, and then thought about different avenues. And I loved doing architecture in high school when we did graphics, certain semesters where we were working on the computer, building houses, designing houses. And obviously, you just got complete creative flair when you're a kid in high school. There's no concerns about budget or whatever. So I was always interested in architecture. Um, so I'd always considered it, but I'd been told that every man and his dog is trying to become an architect, and there's no money in architecture. So that swayed me from it for many years. And then I eventually just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a crack. Studied for 5 years, got my master's, worked in it for 2 years as a graduate of architecture. And it was really interesting. I loved it. Loved certain aspects of it. Certain aspects were a real challenge, um, and it's a tough one because I met my fiance at the time when I was having difficult moments in architecture at the firm I was working in. Just the stress and anxiety. Obviously, there's a lot of responsibility. I was project leading a few projects at the time, So I was finding it difficult to cope. And even though I was doing something that was obviously in the creative realm, helping design homes for people, which was, again, very satisfying, leaving work every day, having accomplished something that would benefit someone's life in some way. Um, but the stress and anxiety I was finding it difficult. And then I met my fiance, and we'd planned to go to Europe, and she lived down here in Brisbane. I was up on the Sunshine Coast at the time. So a lot of things came in alignment to suggest that, leaving the job of architecture might be a good thing. Uh, so I made that decision to leave the firm I was at and move down to Brisbane. We went to Europe, and I never went back because my life, I just had so much more enjoyment in life after leaving it, the stress and the anxiety behind. And now having this second pursuit of creativity with my own art, I've also obviously got much more creative freedom in doing the art I'm doing versus the architecture, because I was under someone's wing essentially. So I still have that huge creative outlet, but in my day-to-day job, I'm much, much happier.
Do you think the fact that it's very self-directed, you are your own boss, you're dictating your creative pursuit, that's one of the more satisfying things about leaving that and focusing on the tufting and the work you're doing now?
Yes, I think a big part of it, obviously, there's a lot of stress and anxiety still that comes from making art for people, because I'm still working for someone in a sense, because a client is paying me money to deliver them something that they've asked for by a certain date as well. But those stresses are they self-inflicted? I guess they are, because I'm deciding that I'm going to take it on myself, and I'm responsible wholly for everything that happens, and it falls on my shoulders for my little business. So I think that's what it is. I really find it hard letting someone else down in whatever degree. Like if I'm just at my day-to-day job, and I pack an order wrong, I hate that I've let down my superiors. I've always been like that with my parents, with whoever. Letting down someone that I'm looking up to is something I really struggle with. And when I was in architecture, obviously the consequences can be quite significant if you've made a mistake in a drawing, or not contacting a structural engineer on time, or whatever it was. I was letting down the CEOs of the company, and I found that hard to deal with. So yeah, now that I've got my own little business, I'm not letting down someone above me. I'm just, the constraints and the stresses are all on my own shoulders.
Do you think that is a benefit or a hindrance when it comes to the artistic pursuits? Because clearly it's a positive thing from just an operation standpoint when you're working for someone else. If you're able to do whatever you can because you feel bad when you let them down, obviously that's going to benefit probably you and the business. But when it comes to your own creative pursuit, I do understand that there are clients and you're commissioning or you're got a work commission for them. But do you think it influences in a negative way your ability to just be purely creative expression and free? And do you think if so, does that even matter? Because like, does it matter if it's just pure inspiration, or is it better to have a little bit of a guide in terms of, okay, I can still be creative, I'm still making the thing, but there's a little bit of direction from the outside. It doesn't take away enough of the my creativity to make it no longer a pursuit I'm as interested in.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because obviously if a client says, I want these colors, this size, I want it to be this kind of shape, there's not a lot of room for me to adjust what they're going to get at the end of it. Um, do I find it? I think there's a little bit more joy and satisfaction from having very little guidance from a client and having more creative freedom. I suppose it's like a tattoo artist. If a client comes into a tattoo artist and said, here's my arm, do whatever you want, they're probably going to enjoy that more than saying, I want a pirate ship on my left butt cheek, So, but at the end of the day, I'm still making art, which is from the age of 5 what I've loved to do. There's still the creative outlet of starting it, the process, finishing it, and then satisfying the client. So I think, yeah, there's a little bit more in terms of creative satisfaction if I have no guidelines, but I don't feel like this is a bit of a drag if the client gives me a bunch of things that they want. I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah. So when it comes to other like artistic, well, not necessarily just pursuits, but things like when you're watching a movie, are you like looking at a movie from a different perspective than I might, where I'm just following the story? Are you like looking at the aesthetics of a movie and just trying to work out, oh, that's interesting the way they've done that, the way they've done this? Do you think it crosses over into all those things?
Perhaps, I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because if I've always been a creative person, so I can't say now that I've become a creative person, I watch movies in a different way. Perhaps that might be the case, but I do know when I was studying English at high school, we had to review an awful film. It was like a Shakespeare remake. So bad.
Romeo and Juliet or some variation.
I can't remember what it was called, but you had to analyze. There was one scene I remember, the main character had primary lighting from this way, shadow on that side of his face, and that was supposed to symbolize the torn between his two characters, the light and the darkness. So I've never forgotten about that. Anytime I see a face in a film that's got a shadow on it, I'm thinking, oh, he's supposed to be half evil, half good. But perhaps, I do find myself analyzing things in films when my fiance and I are watching something. I typically will identify something that she won't have picked up on, and I'll ask her, do you think that? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just watching the film. So maybe there could be something in that.
Yeah, I when it comes to that, the interpretation of what this means, for whatever reason, that I like.
You do,
but
like
I'm
that.
not paying attention to necessarily the artistic choices in terms of visually. But when it comes to like you said in English, where you're interpreting the meaning of a
Yeah.
thing, that always connected with me more. I never had the visual or visually creative side of it, but metaphors, meaning, what this is trying to say.
So do you reckon you can't just sit back and watch a film without analyzing it? Like a deeper meaning?
That's the whole thing. If I recognize early enough that a film has not got anything else to it, there's no kind of deeper thing you're trying to analyze, I just can't. I can maybe watch it, but I've tuned out. I know it's like, I'm not going to enjoy this. I have to. I have to have meaning.
Increased because you're studying, aren't you, psychology? Or you,
Yeah, I was. Hiatus now. Sorry, Mum. But yeah.
You're highly interested in that field, I should say. Has that increased since you've become much more interested in how the human brain works and our evolutionary points? Has that increased when you watch films, or has that always been the case?
That's always been the case. It's the same with music. My favorite songs are ones that tell a story, and it can cross genres. It doesn't necessarily matter the genre. Hip hop, country, just normal, I don't know, indie singer songwriter. There's got to be some kind of story being told. I've got to sense that the emotion that they're portraying is not fake.
So pop music doesn't do it for you.
There's very few pop songs that I can tolerate. Yeah.
Well, there's very few of your music I can tolerate. Whenever you put Johnny Cash on, there's a heated debate about whether it's music or not.
Yes, well, there's a lot of his music that it's telling a good story, especially his later stuff where I believe he created his final album when he was dying of some form of illness, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but you can sense the pain in his voice. And I'm not sadistic, but it's like, there's something about
that.
There's something about it that it feels real. There's something about artificially happy, upbeat music which doesn't resonate with me at all.
I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of pop music typically because a lot of the lyrics are meaningless. They're written by someone else that they knew was going to be to a catchy beat. As you know, I'm heavily into heavy metal, which contrasts to some people's opinions of what I should listen to for some reason. But I think because a lot of those songs, a lot of the music I listen to, there's a storyline, there's a deeper meaning. A lot of the artists are going through um, a lot of personal pain, which comes out in their music. And I suppose it's the same with the music that you listen to. There's a story there. There's pain that you can hear in the tracks or whatever it is. It's not just a catchy beat and oh baby baby.
That's why I can tolerate the kind of the metal
Yeah,
that you listen to more. That is one I've grown to appreciate a little more. I don't mind the screaming aspect of it. Sometimes it's just not unpleasant. It's not pleasant to my ear.
yeah,
But when it's not that, it's like pure emotion.
yeah,
I can feel it, sense it, and I don't hate it. Like I used to as a kid. I used to think, this is nonsense.
yeah.
But I wonder how much of that is just it would play. Dad would say, "Oh, turn that shit off," and I'm like, "Yeah, that is shit."
Yeah, how much are we influenced by our parents when it comes to music? Because we're obviously influenced by our parents a lot in a lot of our lives, whether we realize it or not. But music, is that completely personal, or is it influenced by your parents? Because I have a very strong memory, and I love this part of my childhood was when I would go to bed. My mum at this point was doing her wedding stationery from home, so she'd be in the next room, and every night when she took us in, me and my brother, she'd go off to do her work, and I'd say, "Are you going to listen to music?" Because it was so comforting. She'd either play the best of Rod Stewart or the best of Robbie Williams. That was all she played every night, and then I'd go to sleep to that, knowing that my mum's in the other room. It was such a comforting thing. So now I love listening to Rod Stewart and Robbie Williams, which is obviously heavily influenced by my childhood or that part of my childhood. But on a bigger scale, how much do you think we're influenced by what we listened to as a kid?
I think it's hugely influential. I can't remember where I heard this, but it was along the lines of the music you're listening to at 12, 13, 14. That's what you're going to be listening to the rest of your life. That's the area of where you're consuming the music that's going to stick with you forever. But it makes sense. Like developmentally, your brain's forming around that kind of music. It's associated with that positive experience.
Mm.
Yeah, you're going to start to like that, or you're going to keep liking that forever. But I had a similar experience, not quite going to bed, but just in the car with dad, it would always be Elvis, Johnny Cash. Like that's why
That explains it.
that's partially why it's still I'll listen to Elvis on occasion. And I do think, yeah, dad loves this stuff. Almost every time I listen to it, oh, dad likes this music. Dad likes the music.
And obviously that's because you've got a good relationship with your father.
That's
Whereas
right.
if you didn't, you probably would hate Johnny
Yeah.
Cash.
Oh, Elvis is a piece of shit. Yeah. Well, I think there's a strong correlation. If you're trying to say fuck you to your parents because for whatever reason you're just not into, you just wanted to rebel, you're gonna start listening to the opposite things.
Well, that's why I think people are confused why I listen to metal, because the stereotype is that you're a rebellious, or you were a rebellious teenager. You know, you wore black clothes and eyeliner or whatever it is. I was never like that. I was about 16 when I got into metal. Me and my best mate Reese in high school, we started listening to a band called Pierce the Veil, and I can't listen to them anymore. It's much different to what I listen to now, but that was like the gateway band into metal. So I started my journey into metal when I was 16, and I've always loved it since then. I mean, obviously the bands have evolved a little bit in terms of what I enjoy listening to, but that's when it started for me. Was at 16.
What's the feeling you get? Is it's just pleasant when you're listening to it? You feel really good?
Yeah, I don't know.
If you're feeling bad, it makes you feel better? Like, what is the actual feeling you get when you listen to that kind of music? Or just
Again,
music you like?
to the stereotype, obviously, for the majority of people that love that metal, it's because they're angry at something. Maybe their parents, their life's not going the way they want it to, which comes out in a lot of that music. That's not the case for me. It's never been the case. There's something about it. I think it's the heavy drums, the guitar, the loud screaming. It just brings something out of me. I like the energy of it. When I listen to pop music now, I always feel like there's an instrument or two missing from the track, and it just doesn't have enough oomph. So, yeah, I like getting in mosh pits and throwing my head around. But I don't really subscribe to any of the other stereotypes of life that people that listen to metal. It's just that the music gets me in some sort of way.
It's interesting that because we all have some kind of connection to music because it's so innate within us. I was listening to it was a podcast with Andrew Human, I believe Ed Jarvis, who's a neuroscientist, but he specializes in the auditory side of the brain, or
Yeah,
he's done a lot of work of the influence of music and even dance in how our brain interprets it
right.
and we're wired. But they were talking about how it's wired within us so deeply, the sense of music, that they think that we evolved to sing and hum before we even evolved to speak. So it's something that's so core to who we are. It's why music is one of the things that, and I was late to this because for years I'm just like, oh, music is you. What's the point of music? What's the point of music? It's like oh, what a waste
You're
of
such a
time listening
cynic.
to music. Yeah, that was a very cynical stage
Yeah,
of my life for sure. But there's something about when you hear a piece of music that just connects. I do think it gives you a feeling. I don't even know how to explain the feeling. It's some kind of connection to the music that there's almost nothing else that feels as good
oh
or
yeah, I would agree.
as
Yeah,
right
there's
as
something
a
about
good piece of
music
music.
that's almost indescribable, right? There's certain times you can just get carried away with what you're listening to, even if it's like opera. There's something in there that strikes a chord in you that you can't explain. I suppose it's a little bit like love. For me, I can't really explain love using the English language. I know how it feels, but I don't know if I could accurately portray to someone what love is or what it feels like, other than just feeling it yourself. Like I feel that when I listen to metal at times. People around me, they've got headaches. They just say, "Turn this crap off." It's just noise. But to me, there's something there that strikes a chord.
That's super interesting. I like that connection between like music and love. I think maybe that's because love is so innate within us because I mean, you love the people around you, they survive
Yeah,
longer. It just makes sense that that would
yeah,
be something that's evolved to stay. But maybe that's one of the only things as old as the desire to consume or create music within us. It is indescribable.
yeah,
It's good or it's pleasant or it's better,
yeah.
but I
I think
don't know
that's
how
why
else to explain it.
a lot of people would say that life without music is unbearable. Like life without love is almost unbearable for a lot of people. I think everyone needs love and everyone needs music in the same sort of sense. Like with love, obviously you love your family. Well, most people do. People that are fortunate to grow up in a nice, happy household. You love your family because they've been there since day dot. I can't explain the love I have for my mum or my dad or my brother. And then your partner comes along in your life whenever they do. I met my partner when I was 29, obviously a little bit later in life than most people, but you meet that person, you can't explain it. You just love them. Just, obviously not in the same way you love your mum.
But there's some overlap
Yeah.
there. It's an innate love that
Yeah.
maybe it's a little bit more conditional with your partner than your mum.
Yeah.
Because I would describe your kids, your parents, especially if it's a good relationship, that's almost unconditional with the parents, definitely unconditional with the kids. Your partner, there's some conditions. They can't do
Yeah,
a few
that's
things.
true.
The love's got to go probably if
That's
they do
true.
a few things,
Yeah.
but the feeling in the moment is probably the same. It's the same feeling of indescribable. I want them to do well in everything they do, or I want them to be happy, and the feelings there.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
well, yeah.
those topics that are indescribable are interesting because as I think as humans, we want to understand everything. We think you know, we have the right to understand everything when some things are just you can't reconcile, you can't comprehend. Like love, I think you can't really explain it. And the love for music, it's one of those things that it's there or it's not.
And it's everywhere. Every movie you watch, music is a huge part of it. Or the absence of music is really noticeable. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, that's an interesting choice. Oh,
yeah,
that's also
yeah,
fascinating. But it creeps into everything, especially like really dramatic films,
yeah,
like even like war films. The music, the score, it's what it dictates how you should feel in each of these moments,
yeah.
and it's so effective at doing it.
Yeah. Well, if
really
it's the right music, yeah. If it's been composed correctly, then it makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
I think so. That's
Yeah.
one of those things that maybe I haven't paid as much attention to.
Oh, geez. Another thing for you to analyze when you're watching films.
No, but I think it's
What does this
because
violin mean at this point in time?
it's because you can just sense if it's right or not in the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
You know if something's out of place.
Well, I think that's a sign of good composition of music is you don't notice it's there, but you notice when it's not there. I think that would be the key because it's like acting. You can't when you notice someone's acting, they're a bad actor. You can see it, and then when you watch, a big feature film with like a De Niro or someone like that, you don't notice they're acting. You're just seeing another character in a film. So I think it's like music. If you don't notice it, it's probably good music.
It's fully captivating.
Yeah, captivating.
You just it's all your attention. It's all you can focus on. Yeah, that's interesting because I I think we're drawn most to those things that captivate us like that. Like even listening to a podcast or watching like an online like an online lecture, the
Oh God,
the ones
memories.
that but the ones that not university ones, unfortunately, very few of them actually are captivating. But from like, the Petersons of the world and whatnot,
Yeah.
my memories of those, it's because in those moments I was just fully captivated by whatever it is. But part of the reason, even those things, which maybe it's dense in the content, but the way they're describing everything, it's in the format of a story. So it's even if it's something factual, even if it's something like rigorously scientific, if it's presented in a story, there's something about that captivates and helps you retain whatever it is.
So it's the storytelling aspect helps us to be captivated.
I think the storytelling is maybe at the root what connects with us the most, whether it's
Rather than
whether
just
it's
spitting out
music.
facts at you.
Yeah, it's very hard for me, and I think very hard for a lot of people to just hear a fact and retain that fact as it is. It's much
Unless
easier.
it's a really weird fact.
Yes.
Like only 24% of all the world's roundabouts are actually round. That's one of those facts that sounds like, I always make up a different number, by the way. Obviously, it's a made up fact. But you tell people, and if you say it in a certain way, it sounds like a proper fact, but it's obviously not. But one of the things I remember, which is almost useless unless I'm faced with a volcano, the stuff that kills you in a volcano when it erupts is the ash cloud. Do you know what the ash cloud is called? It's called pyroclastic flow.
Okay.
Which is a strange word. And I've always remembered it. And it's a fact that I share with people, which is almost completely pointless. But those kind of weird facts, I think, stay with you. But then if you're learning about a subject and it's just fact after fact after, I think you forget about it. It just goes in one ear, out the other. Unless, like you're suggesting, it's in a story of some sort.
What's the most common response when someone says that? It's probably something along the lines of, "Oh, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
Why did you hear that?"
Yeah.
So even with that fact, I think the person's craving the story behind the fact.
Yeah, that's true. Because then I'd always just say, I don't know. I've heard it somewhere.
And then they're left thoroughly unsatisfied by that.
You forget the source. You just remember the fact.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the novel thing is what sticks, which, I mean, in everything, novelty is going to connect or it's going to get people interested.
Yeah.
It's something you haven't heard before.
Yeah, anything that's weird or strange. So people,
anything we can't necessarily comprehend at first and we want further explanation for. I find that with war movies. I know you're interested in war movies, some of your favorite movies. I'm the same. What about them? And I think in particular World War II for you seems to be particularly captivating.
Yep.
What do you think it is about that draws you in so much?
Well, it could be a little arc back to how much we're influenced by our parents as well. Because my dad is really interested in war in general. But the Second World War, I remember growing up as a kid, he would watch them. Kelly's Heroes is one of his favorite ever films, which is in World War II. So I think perhaps that's influenced me because it was Actually, I tell you what, a memory's just come to me. As a child, what I would ask every time I had lunch at home, this was back when we had videotapes, not DVDs. I had a videotape that had two films on it: The Princess Bride, which I love to this day, and a film called Zulu, which I think was one of Michael Caine's first feature films. He plays a main character in it, and it's the British fighting against the Zulu tribe in Africa. I can't remember the country, um, but I would always ask Dad once I finished watching The Princess Bride to come in and fast forward the Zulu film to the fight scene, which takes place towards the end of the film, and so that as a kid, it sounds bad, but I loved watching battle and conflict. I don't know why. It struck a nerve with me. And yeah, World War II I find fascinating, obviously, because there's so much that's going on at once. The politics involved, the conflicts in different parts of the world. One of my favorite World War II, it's a mini series, it's not a film, it's called Band of Brothers, which I've watched countless times. And it follows the story of paratroopers from the US when they were dropped behind enemy lines and kind of tried to fight their way through occupied Europe. Fascinating, really good mini series. But anytime there's a World War II film coming out, I love watching them. They're very good.
What do you think it is about World War II in particular that I like, putting aside perhaps the parental influence? What is it about that captivates so much? Because you're not alone. There's a reason most of the movies are in World War II. It's very captivating.
I suppose the scale of it and the storyline. There's a very clear bad guy. We like films where there's a bad guy and a good guy. And well, it's World War II films are predominantly shown from the point of view of the victors, right? So that's why I enjoy watching, like Valkyrie is Tom Cruise plays a German general of some sort trying to fight against Hitler. So it's kind of shown from the German perspective, a bit different. But I think the storyline in it, we're taught through school, or at least I was, about the pure evil of Nazi Germany and what they did and how bad it was. All war, obviously, there's a lot of bad things happen, but I think World War II, it was highlighted and drilled into me as a kid how many bad things happened to many different people in so many countries. And I think that's probably why the storyline of it and the scale of what took place.
I don't think there is a better depiction of evil in the modern era than Hitler and what he did, especially towards the end of that war. I do think it's the good versus evil. And even though war is messy, I would love to hear a compelling argument that he wasn't pure evil. Yeah. I don't think you could create one. I don't think there's a way you could.
It's great. I think, I don't know about you, but I also enjoy watching little Netflix documentaries on mass murderers, serial killers, people that have done terrible things. And I can't really explain it. I suppose it's seeing someone that's completely out of the norm. Like their brain works in such a different way, obviously. And I think for a lot of those people, they almost can't help it. I've seen cases where they even know right from wrong and they still do wrong. And the people that don't know right from wrong, they're just doing it because their brain tells them to. I find it fascinating, even though it's very dark and quite scary and troublesome and concerning, because you never know who might be like that. But I think it's fascinating seeing people that are on such a different wavelength, obviously, as Adolf Hitler was, the way he operated and the people under him and what they thought was the right thing to do is obviously not the right thing to do.
Yeah,
to put it plainly.
You can't shy away from these things, even if they're hard and confronting.
Yeah.
But no, that's that kind of person. It's what got me into psychology. It's what pushed me there. Yeah. I was so fascinated
because you wanted to try and understand how
exactly
the brain works.
At first, it's how on earth can someone do that? Is it within everyone? I don't think I think like that. What's going on? So a lot
of the capability to to do those kinds of things might be
Well,
in everyone.
the capability to do that kind of thing, I have become convinced it's probably within everyone, not necessarily the
Well, I suppose we
serial
all have
killer.
the physical capability, don't we?
But there is a book. I did give this to you to read one time, but it was pretty rough on me giving it to you because you went on a nice trip overseas.
Yeah.
I gave you a book called Ordinary Men, which is about a Polish police
Yeah.
battalion who then, under Nazi reign, were periodically and slowly compelled to do more and more evil things.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of this book, it's Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. The men in the book, they're not depicted as evil Nazi supporters.
Yeah.
They're
Well, so many of them weren't, were they? They're just following orders.
they were, on average, they were older
Yeah.
than when the Nazi political party came in, and no strong leanings towards supporting the ideas of
Yeah.
Hitler. They were just in that role, doing that job. Most of them became part of this police battalion in order to avoid being conscripted into the war. They were given the option, well, you can do this, you're a little bit older, you can be in this police battalion and you don't have to be part of the army. And over a period of time, they were just slowly compelled through orders to do more and more heinous things.
Acts.
And the way the book presents it, which I think it's hard to deny that if you read that book in the right way, that it's not the majority of people who would resist just following the orders in that moment, because it wasn't explicitly said, if you don't do this, you'll be severely punished, but it was strongly encouraged you did it and it was your duty. And the amount of crazy things people will do when they're convinced it's their duty, or that they fear that there will be a retaliation when there isn't actually one explicitly there. It got me understanding that, okay, the person who stands up and resists, that's not natural. That's not the average person. Most people can be compelled to do horrible things if they fear that their life's in danger, or if they fear that even their family are going to be shunned or punished for it. So I think it's perhaps a little naive to think I'm so morally righteous that no matter the circumstances, I will stand up and do the right thing. I don't think you can get there unless you've done the work to understand how you could actually get to that point.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people that watch these, if we're talking about films of World War II, will watch it through the lens thinking that, yeah, I would be a type of person that would, hide several Jewish people on the run in my roof to try and protect them. But in reality, it might not be the case. I mean, I know there was plenty of stories going back to COVID. Obviously, being British, I was fully aware of what was happening in the UK. It was much more rife in the UK than we had it here in Australia. But people were very quick to call out other people not following the rules, not wearing a mask, going out for a walk with their dog when they weren't supposed to, snitching on their fellow people, which is very similar to what was happening in World War II. People snitching on neighbors, hiding Jewish people, because you want to be seen as doing the right thing by the people above you in power at the time. So yeah, we like to tell ourselves that we would do the right thing, but whether we could in the moment is hard to know, because obviously you look out for oneself first. Most of us would anyway. You look out for yourself and your own family before you care for the needs of others.
Have you seen much, read much, watched much about what it was like in the Soviet Union when it was the communist state for the long point it was? Because
Not really.
Because that is exactly what those societies were built on. It was built on, so that microcosm of COVID, where that 2-year period of people snitching, the only reason that state remained as it was because every neighbor, you were compelled to snitch on anyone who was doing anything, essentially speaking out against the Communist Party. And that was to an extreme degree where in schools, even the kids were asked to snitch on their parents. And they would, because they were brought up in a society where you snitch. And in terms of evil, some of the things that happened during that period, it was like a 50-year period from like 18 to 1980, where Russia, Soviet
Someone
Union.
will be fact checking that now.
That's fine. It's a long period of time
Yeah.
where the Soviet Union, where it was a purely communist state, and there were some periods in there. There's a good book you should read if you want to understand. These are tough.
I'm not a reader, Dino. You know this.
Or listen to you.
Okay.
I listened to the audiobook of it.
Yeah,
I didn't read it. But it's the same thing if you can if you can focus enough on an audiobook. But the Gulag
Questioning my
Archipelago.
ability to focus.
No,
If you're clever enough to listen
it's
to
one
an
of those
audiobook.
things where learning through an audio means it's tough if you don't do it a lot.
Yeah.
The only reason I know I can do it is because I've been listening to podcasts
Plenty
for
of
13
practice.
years, audiobooks, and it took like 4 years before I could actually retain what I'm listening.
Really? 4 years you're
Like, till now I'm confident that I can retain more than I'm forgetting.
right.
like,
Okay.
Because often when you're listening to things, if you're like me, you're not just sitting listening. It's one of two or
Yeah,
three
you're doing
things
other
you're doing at a
things.
time.
Yeah.
I'm
it becomes
driving.
white noise
while-
almost.
Yeah, so it's hard to actually just focus. But the book's called The Gulag Archipelago, and it literally outlines what it was like living in the Soviet Union, and then what it was like going into the gulags, which were the working camps. Which, if you're trying to depict evil,
Is that where the word gulag comes from?
it's Russian working camps.
All right. I just
Or
know it was
prison
the last chance
camps.
to get back into the game.
Yeah,
A 1v1.
God, once I learnt this stuff, it made Call of Duty harder to
Yeah.
play, I'll be honest. Like, those gulags look pretty good compared to the stories I've read about. But the depiction of, or the banality of evil is kind of a phrase that sticks with me. It's not this overt, obvious. Well, that's why we like the depiction of Hitler as evil, because it's obvious how evil that guy is.
You can't question.
But this outlines how, like, a whole society can become rife with evil through the most banal means of just everyone choosing not to acknowledge the bad that's going on, but through fear of them being punished for not going along with the status quo. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to outline exactly. The book is like a smack to the face 100 times over. It's
Right.
kind of horrific, and maybe if you're not as keen on understanding the psychology of evil like I am, it can probably change the way you view the world, I think.
Well, maybe that's not the best thing for me to start reading, especially if it's going to take 4 years for me to start retaining the
No,
information. As you
you're retained
suggest.
better than me. You're retained better than me, I'm sure. But no, I think it's within everyone's, maybe not interest, but in terms of doing your due diligence, of understanding that it's good to be in a world where everything's good and everything's happy. But you need to understand that people are capable of terrible things, and you are yourself. So the only way to guard yourself against it is to be aware that you're capable of
to
it.
recognize what's taking place.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we neglect to think that we're capable of doing anything wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think a lot of people's first reaction is to
We'll cut it out.
the cardinal sin, knocking the microphone boom. I think the people's first reaction when they get accused of something is to suggest that it wasn't them, or to throw away the responsibility. So I think that you could be onto something there.
Or if they admit that it was them, that you start to point out what everyone else is doing
Yeah,
wrong
it's
too.
because of what you did or what you said. That's why it happened.
But he's doing this. He did
Yeah.
that. It's not just me. Like, we all do it. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. You purposely swapped the pick slip on me
Yeah.
now. Packed the wrong order.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's I think it's a worthy pursuit if you want to actually understand the world and not just be in a little bubble of.
Yeah, well, and if you want to become a better person,
I
a
think
better
so.
person for society and for the people around you, which makes you a better person, doesn't it? I think that's one of the main pursuits of life, is to become a better person for those around you, not just for your own sake and your experience of life, but for those around you.
I think so. I think the lone wolf mentality or thinking you can do everything on your own or everything you benefit is just for you. I don't know how well that works for most people.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can. We're so communal in our nature. We
Yeah.
like people.
Yeah. It's part of our DNA.
It's well, yeah. Again, we evolved in small bands.
Evolution.
Yeah. Evolution is. There's all kinds of evidence of community being a massive part of
Yeah.
correlating strongly with happiness. Like there's plenty of research suggesting that lonely people are not as happy as people who feel like they have close friends and community. But it can be tough. Do you find it a struggle to maybe satiate that aspect given how disconnected it is or how easy it is to be disconnected through communicating with people a lot online? Or are you finding it's all right? Do you still have enough of that communal aspect? It's not as much of a struggle as some people. For myself, for instance, like it can be to just lose connection because everyone's just accessible via phone.
Yeah. I think for me, I get a lot of like my workplace now. I'm working with my friends. Everyone that I work with, I enjoy spending time with. And we're in a workplace fortunate enough where we're allowed to have conversations whilst we're working. So there's a great social aspect every day when I come to work. And then obviously when I'm going home and doing my art, I'm by myself most of the time. My loving fiance is there telling me when dinner's ready. But I get a lot of my social needs and interaction from work, which is great, as opposed to when I was in architecture. You're at your computer. You're not. The only time you're discussing is over work matters. Obviously, that doesn't really, you know, satiate your social needs in the same way at all. So I've found that's been a big part of why generally I'm happier now working where I'm at as opposed to in architecture, because every time I'm at work, there's social conversation, whether it's stuff we've done on the weekend, football, whatever it is. I'm getting that at work, whereas previously it's all about work.
Do you think you may have stayed in architecture longer if there was more of a culture like there is where you work now?
Possibly, I think it's quite possible. That was one of the challenging things I found after almost 2 years in it, that I wasn't having really any social interaction with my colleagues. A little bit from now and then, but nothing like I get here. And my previous workplaces prior to architecture, there was again a lot of social interaction, general chit chat, which is so important to us. Well, it is for me, as you suggest. Some people can be lone wolves; they're fine.
I don't think
I'm,
many. Well, I don't think there. I think it's like a very, very small amount of people who can tolerate the lone wolf life.
yeah, I suppose I'm thinking of gamers. They obviously spend a lot of time by themselves. Whether they're happy or not, ultimately doing that is a different question. I don't know any to ask them. Um, but I'm thinking of people like that operate as a lone wolf for the majority of their life. Maybe it works for them, but it wouldn't work for me. I know that much for sure.
I I don't think it'll work for me. I
No.
think it's tough. It's a
Yeah.
tough life. All your connection with people.
Well, you're
being through a
Greek. It's
screen.
impossible to be a lone wolf.
There's always a family member around.
Oh
There's
my
someone.
goodness.
There's someone close.
I swear, there's what have we got? Like 6 Greeks where we work. You're all doing something on the weekend with family. There's always something going on,
Well, there's strong
which is
cultural
great.
family aspect.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. I'm jealous. Obviously, all my family's in the UK. I've got an auntie and cousins in Perth. May as well be a different country, obviously, because it's so far away. But yeah, other than my immediate family, we're just all here. So I am envious of the family occasions that happen on a weekly basis for you guys.
It is one thing that perhaps the traditional cultures have gotten right in terms of it does feel more satisfying having family close. Now, a lot of the time, you do have to leave your family to go make a life for yourself.
Yep.
But a lot of the time, people do come back, especially when they start to have kids. They'll start to come back close to where the parents are
Yeah, come back to the nest.
because, again, you want your kids to have their grandparents around if it's possible. It's not always possible, depending on what line of work you do, kind of life you live. If they're good grandparents, for starters,
Yeah.
but like the Greek community, a lot of the immigrant communities, they do have a strong family unit, and you got
Everything
someone to go
operates
back
from
to.
family, doesn't it?
Say again?
Everything from operates from family is what I found in the Greek culture. Like family is everything, and then it all kind of branches off from that.
First
Yeah,
principles
yeah,
is family first.
which is beautiful. It's a great thing.
That's good. I think it provides you with stability, right?
Yeah,
You may be more confident to go out and take more risks because you know you've got this strong core unit of a family back there
yeah.
who's always going to support you.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue against that.
Mm.
But at a certain age, like I think every young man from 18 to 30 or some period in there needs to break off from that for a little bit and try to figure out who they are as a person.
Yeah, yeah. That happened to me actually, because I've always more or less been very, very close with my immediate family. I lived at home for a long time. I left to study at uni here in Brisbane, and then I moved back in with mum and dad at a respectable age of 28. It was great.
Happens.
Mum did my washing for me. So yeah, and I do miss that, but also there was a part of me that obviously had to grow up, and I met my now fiance. We moved in together, and life was great. But I am, what is it, an hour and a half away from mum and dad, so I don't see him as much as I used to, which is sad. You know, I'm very close with both of them, but it's not like we're on the other side of the world. How it was for them leaving their parents, which looking back on it now, I was 13 when we came out to Australia. So for me, it was just a big adventure. I couldn't wait to enjoy the sun and get a motorbike and all these great things that were going to happen. I didn't really even consider the aspect of leaving family. Obviously, it was a big burden for them and a difficult thing for them to overcome and accept and adapt to. I know that my mum struggled with it for a long, long time. My dad's an only child, so for him, it was pretty much just his parents that he was leaving. Um, but yeah, I would find it very difficult to move a long way from my parents, especially that my fiance and I are hoping to have a family of our own. And like you said, the grandparents would be a key part of my children's upbringing, hopefully. So yeah, I would stay close to the nest if I can.
Yeah, the pioneer mentality of packing up and going to another country. Like you need people like that in the world. Like it's very important. It's
Well, a lot of those
very
people are British, mainly because they want to leave the grey, gloomy, dull country they live in.
I imagine it is very appealing, the sunshine, the
Yeah,
weather, compared to, I don't know, 295 days of cloud cover.
yeah, it's pretty accurate, maybe a little bit more. But I think that plays a big part in your overall happiness of your life as well. Sunshine. I mean, you know, it is miserable. When we go back to the UK, sometimes you can have 4 weeks of grey, and it takes a toll on you in that short time. So perpetual state of greyness is, it weighs you down, I think. And I think that's why a lot of British people are miserable. Maybe that's why we get called the whinging Poms.
Well, that's why you're cling to football so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to have something. Football gives us so much.
Something to look forward to is football on the weekend.
Well, it depends who you support. As an Evertonian, wasn't always something to look forward to.
So when you moved to Australia, why didn't you make the choice to switch from Everton? What?
Football is my religion. It's, how do I explain it? So my grandfather is the first generation of Englishmen in the family line of Bruchez. The heritage goes back to Switzerland. I was named after my great grandfather in a weird way. We might get to that. But he moved to Liverpool, and my grandfather grew up in Liverpool. My dad was born and raised in Liverpool. And for anyone that knows English football, there are two primary teams in Liverpool and Everton. My family was Everton. My grandfather supported them. My dad supported them. It's just in the blood. When I was raised as an Evertonian, much like being raised a Catholic or something. If you're raised in a Catholic family, you're going to be Catholic. It's just the way it is. There's no other. I could not imagine caring one iota for another team. It's Everton all the way.
So even coming here, even different sports, like there's no way.
No. Football is football. It's the best sport, the oldest, well, one of the oldest international sports. It's just everything. You know, there are other sports I enjoy. There's not a lot of Australian sports I enjoy since coming here. The Australian football, the A League, is not a patch on the Premier League, so I never switched to that. Rugby league, not my cup of tea. Rugby union, international rugby union, I enjoy watching England play in World Cups and whatever they're into. But league and union, not really. AFL.
Tolerable.
We know
it's tolerable.
we know the topic on that. My mother-in-law to be is a massive Brisbane Lions fan. So when I met Jess, my fiance, I was introduced to AFL more heavily, more concentrated. I'd seen it clips, on the TV and thousands of people in a bar watching the final of the AFL, and I could never understand what the appeal was because it just looked like a bunch of 10-year-old boys trying to run after a bouncing ball. And it is, still my opinion much to this day. But I appreciate the sport, the athleticism. It's just, it doesn't captivate me the way football does. It's always been there.
I have a similar experience. Like most of the Australian sports, I even grew up in Australia, but football's the only one I really got into.
Yeah.
Like tennis, but that's not the same thing.
No. Yeah, well, I enjoy watching Formula One and golf. Probably golf a little bit more than Formula One since I started playing it. But it still doesn't, the passion isn't there like it is for football. Like I will get up at 2 a.m., no questions asked, to watch Everton play, especially if it's a big game. England football, I would not miss a match of English football. I'm so passionate. I think since leaving England, obviously I don't know what it would have been like if I'd have grown up as an adult in the UK. I know I would have been a big supporter, but I think being in a different country, my patriotism is probably amplified, greater than what it would have been. So when I watch England play, there's a lot of pride and passion watching them playing. Desperate to see them win a tournament. It's always heartache when they don't. Many people have seen videos of myself, my dad, and my brother watching England play big moments, penalty shootouts, and I've got the phone recording our reaction and just jumping up and down, screaming, hugging each other, because it just brings something out of you. There's maybe it's another indescribable thing, like love and music. Can't really explain why I love it so much, but the passion is there, and it always has been. It always will be.
It's like a devotion to Everton and England. It's devotion to football.
And my kids, they better be an Everton supporter, not a Brisbane Lions supporter. Sorry, Pat.
They won't have a choice.
Yeah.
They won't have a choice. You'll get them the Everton jerseys.
Yeah.
You might hide the gifts of the Brisbane Lions.
They could maybe have a Brisbane Lions lunchbox or something. But yeah, they'll wear the Everton shirt for sure.
Yeah, their heart will lie with Everton. Maybe they can dabble in Brisbane Lions here and there.
And I'm sorry to my future children for making you an Everton fan.
Well, to linger on Everton a little bit more, you compared it to, so religion for you. It's like, how do I say this? There's an undescribable feeling to supporting Everton. It's almost like it's innate within you. And there's no question of ever not supporting them.
Yep. And if someone tries to tell me you're supporting the wrong team, get out of my house. It is just my team. It's the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. What I was trying to get to, here we go, is when they win, when they lose, is it like it's you winning and you losing?
Yeah, it is.
That feeling is just, is it more intense than like your own personal losing of football when you would play? Or is it's like on par? It's just like it's you?
When I would play football, I played up until I was 21. I kept breaking my collarbone. The third time was the final straw. So I had plenty of years playing football. I would say it's a different feeling. Winning and losing, obviously you hate losing if you're competitive like I am. But watching Everton win is different to being in a team on the Sunshine Coast that I don't have a huge association with. I moved to Sunshine Coast by pure coincidence that I played for Maroochydore, the team that I used to play for. I may as well have, played for Coolum or Budrum, whatever it was. The feeling would have been the same. But watching Everton, I was born into Everton. So the feeling is certainly different because it's just part of my DNA. Even obviously it's not, but that's the turn of phrase that people use. It's part of my DNA.
So it's like the idea of something more than you. It's not just you winning and losing. It's this whole community of people in this shared experience.
Yep.
The winning, the losing. That's what's captivating about it. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's when I see Everton fans in the stadium celebrating. I'm all the way here in Australia, but I feel like I'm a part of them. I'm experiencing the exact same thing, feeling their emotions, and you can see complete strangers hugging each other because you're all in it together. You're all experiencing the same thing, which is funny because it doesn't matter. Football is a never-ending Netflix series. There will be no conclusion. Next year there'll be a different winner, and there'll be a different team that's the worst, and it goes in a constant cycle. It means nothing. By the end of the time, your team can win one year, they won't win the next. It's just in the moment, it feels incredible.
So I wonder. So I was I would say, diehard Chelsea fan from the age of, I don't know, when I can remember consciously enjoying football, maybe 6, 7,
Yep.
to about, I don't know, 23, 24.
And there was a drop off.
And then it just completely turned into, I do not care about. I just no longer felt.
Incidentally,
anything.
Is that the year around when they stopped competing for Champions League?
No. I think they had just won like a Champions League or something. Like it was nothing to do with the success of it.
Yeah. Can you explain why there was a drop off in interest? Because I know now when we talk about football, you're interested in Chelsea. You prefer that they win, but you don't hang your hat on it. It doesn't affect you in too much of a way, does it?
It's one of those things where I know enough to have a conversation about it, but I no longer feel like anything for it. And it was very strange to me because for a long period of most of my life that I've lived, I cared about football as much as anything. Probably, not to the intensity you did. Never to that intensity. It was never everything. I never got super emotional over a game.
Oh, I'm very emotional.
Well, yeah, maybe that's just a temperamental issue.
It could be, my personality trait.
Yeah,
was there something that happened in your life at that point when you dropped off interest in football?
I think it does correlate strongly with. I started to recognize I wasn't doing anything useful in life, and I was dedicating a lot of my time to either watching sport or playing FIFA. So I wonder if I've packaged football in with me being unproductive.
Yeah.
Or because there was a time when I was like 15, 16 where I thought maybe I'll be a football player. And then I realized very quickly that I haven't dedicated enough time to really focusing on it. Maybe there was talent there, but one, don't have the drive.
Yeah.
2, I didn't have the drive early enough. And 3, I wasn't willing to do the work to.
I think anyone that's into football has at least a period where they think, I could be a professional footballer. I had that, but similar to you, I realized I didn't have the drive required, the dedication, the commitment of what it takes to become a professional footballer, to pursue it with any sincerity. Yeah.
And for me, also the talent just wasn't there. I wasn't as good as I thought I was because I was playing against people who were at a lower level. And then when I played with people at the higher level,
you were punching down most of the time.
I think so. Yeah, but I thought, shit, I'm pretty good.
You're good at this.
I'm quick.
It's quite easy playing against 10-year-olds when you're 23.
Yeah, when I realized that, you can't just be fast because I lost my pace when I got an injury. I seem to have lost a step, and I don't have anything beyond that.
Yeah, you've got nothing else. Yeah,
that was my only trait. But to go back to the falling out of love, I think it was very much that where it's packaged up with me as I dedicated so much of my life to this thing, but half-assed. It wasn't a full-on.
It was easy. I find it easy that you were able to switch that, though. You were able to in your mind recognize that you weren't doing enough with your life, productive wise, and planning for your future, and football perhaps was dragging you down to that point. And in order to move forward, did you think like you had to leave football behind a little bit?
It's not like it was that conscious. I think in my brain it just packaged as this is part of the distraction that's stopping
Right.
you move
And
forward.
then
You're just
subconsciously,
distracting yourself. So I had to throw everything out.
Yeah.
So it just the baby with the bathwater, so to speak.
Yeah.
It just had to go. I had to start focusing on other things. So I don't know. So I probably attribute too much blame to football, but I don't blame football for me being useless.
You're just useless enough.
It was just the thing I was in. I dedicated my life to it. And I realized I don't care. Like I
Yeah.
don't care enough about it where I'm gonna do anything to do with it forever. Like it's just the thing I did, and I'm not that. It's not as important to my identity as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Because my identity was packaged in like did all football. Like it was all football.
That's you were the football kid.
Hmm.
Yeah, you knew everything about football. You played FIFA, and that's who Dino was.
And I still have like a huge amount of knowledge on football, especially from the past era. That takes up so much space in my brain still. And I don't hate that.
I love that you were the football guy. You left that, and then you became the hunter gatherer when you took up archery.
One of the many pursuits.
Yeah.
There's something different about archery, though. That's a Zen
Yeah,
experience.
there's more to it than just throwing an arrow.
Yeah. There is something about lining up, shooting something, hitting a target.
Yeah.
There's something thoroughly satisfying about.
Yeah, I had
about
an
that.
air rifle when I was 13. My dad got it for Christmas. I was over the moon, just shooting a target, obviously, but it was something satisfying about lining up in the crosshairs and hitting the target and being able to do that for no reason. You're just hitting a target. There's no productive. Nothing comes from it at the end of the day. It's just a little challenge that you set yourself.
I'm going to have to turn this into the evolution podcast, but
Yeah.
the idea in the evolutionary psychology or the theories suggest that the reason we, especially men, have a satisfaction with throwing something, hitting a target, which is almost every sport is target. You're
Yeah.
hitting a target.
Yeah.
There's no ball sport, at least, that isn't some form of hit a target.
Yeah, you're right.
Get a point.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just so ingrained within us because when we were the hunter-gatherers, hitting targets,
It was essential to life.
if you were good at that, you got food for your family.
Yeah.
You were able to survive. You're able to reproduce. Those genes kept on going. So the people who could do that are the ones that have made it here, or the people from that lineage. So it's like there's something innately satisfying about throwing a ball where you want to hit it. It doesn't matter what it is, but any kind of hitting a target, that within all of us is just such a strong feeling.
Yeah, you're right. It makes so much sense. And even to this day, people that are under contract to hit a target, they hit the target so that they can get the food on the table, put a roof over their family's head. Is that why do you think that typically, treading on eggshells, typically women aren't as good at, I don't know, throwing a ball?
I think it's an evolved mechanism.
Yeah.
These same
Back
in the same
Hunter
book.
and gatherer, the men had to go out and hunt and throw spears, and the women obviously didn't back then when we were hunter and gatherers.
Yeah, in the same book I got it from, which I believe is by David Buston, Evolutionary Psychology. I can't remember the exact book, but they did research, they've done studies on it, and it's been repeated, where just the base level coordination of young boys as toddlers, young girls as toddlers, all through up until adulthood, just the average level of coordination is just higher in the boys on average. And
that ability is being
it's
passed down through generations.
It's been passed down genetically through. Well, this is what has aided in survival for the past 300,000 years. So more people are going to have better coordination in this realm for this thing. So it's funny how it becomes controversial, but it's so obvious when you just look at the actual research on what's happening, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just
No, I
it's just
just think
factual.
I think the controversy comes from the other side of the fence when, you know, in that sentence, women are being told by men that, oh, we can do this, but you really can't, in the same sense, which on the face of it is a bit rude and offensive, even though it is factual that the majority of men would be able to, I don't know, throw a javelin further or, you know, hit a golf ball more accurately than women for some reason, obviously because of hunter-gatherers needing to do it and it's been passed down, but at the same sense, being told that you can't do something simply because you're of this gender comes across as a bit rude, I suppose.
And that's fair enough. In any like individual circumstance, you're not going to just be like, you're a woman, you can't throw a ball. Like, of course, that's rude. But when you're talking about these things, that's why
generality.
You just got to be careful to say, on average.
I know you were really into archery at one point. This is before I met you, I think, or just as I met you. You didn't think about dedicating time to that and becoming a competitive in archery?
Perhaps not competitive. The idea was I wanted to get really good at archery. I did want to go out and try my hand at like hunting and catching the food that I'm eating, at least every now and then.
Yeah.
As like a
apples would have been an easy target to start with.
Well, very small target, very difficult target.
Look at this, sweetie. I've brought back some apples.
But I did like the notion of, in some aspect, getting out in nature, returning to your roots, capturing the thing you're eating. Part of it was because I'd become convinced that not just me, but a lot of us have become disconnected with where our food actually comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of me, I wanted to understand, okay, I eat meat. It's good for you. But can I tolerate actually going out, killing the thing, going through the whole process and eating it? Like, am I just a hypocrite saying you should eat meat, there's nothing wrong with it? Because health-wise, I'm thoroughly convinced there's nothing wrong with eating consumption of meat. No, I think it's
necessary. Well, we were born on eating meat.
I think
we wouldn't have got this far if we didn't eat meat to begin with.
Yeah, there's plenty of nutrients in it, especially prepared right and whatnot. But the actual process of going out, catching the thing, preparing the thing from the root or from the beginning process and being able to do that, I thought at some point I have to show myself I'm able to do that in order to just completely ethically justify that I'm doing this thing. Like, I can eat meat. I don't feel bad about it because I know I can go through all the steps. I'm no longer disconnected.
Yeah, I think a lot of us would struggle with that. I'm not sure how I would go. I would like to think that I wouldn't have an issue with, you know, if I'm going to eat this bit of beef, I'm going to kill the cow myself so that I can kind of rid myself of any guilt. But I don't know if you've watched Clarkson's Farm. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen
Clarkson's farming series. I really enjoy watching it. But I found it interesting because he portrays himself, and I think he would identify as kind of a macho man. You know, he drives cars. Whatever. But he found it difficult setting his cows off to the abattoir and his pigs off to the abattoir to then get the produce. Watching him, you know, send his cows on the truck, his pigs on the truck, he was really struggling with it. So I wonder if we would all have a real difficulty in actually being the hands of the end of the life of that animal so that we can eat it. Because we do rid ourselves of, you just see it in a packet in the supermarket shelf. No connection whatsoever to that cow previously eating a bit of grass in a nice field somewhere. Doesn't even cross your mind. Certainly for me. And whether we'd actually be able to go out into the field, you know, however many weeks before it is and kill that cow and, you know, do what needs to happen. I'm not sure we'd all be able to do it.
It's one of those things that, again, that's in us. It's in us to do it. But I think to gain an appreciation of it and to actually understand that, so you should at least do it once. And I still haven't done it because
you never got out to the field and
no, because I
put
decided
the arrow through that cow.
Well, I decided to take it up right before the birth of my first baby, which is probably a bad time to start a completely new endeavor that it's going to take a lot of time and dedication
Your
to
poor
do it.
partner's at home with a crying baby, and you're out wandering fields with a bow and arrow.
As it used to be, which is a throwback to a traditional time.
Yeah.
But no, it is like I never got rid of the bow and arrow. It is something I will incorporate at some point. But also logistically, it's a bit of a nightmare to find someone to actually go do that in Australia. You just have to know someone with property.
Yeah, there's licensed properties that allows you to go and do it.
Yeah, so you go pay, you go do it. I'm sure it's doable, and at some point, I still plan on doing that. But I was convinced there's a hunter called Steven Ranella. He's an American fella. It's a little bit more accessible there, but him talking on podcasts and watching his show it was called Meat Eater. But he would talk about the process of doing it, and it's not a heartless thing. Like they have a connection to these animals because the animals that they're killing and then they're eating, they're providing their family with sustenance. So it's an emotional process. It's not lost on them that they've taken a life, but the payoff of, well, I'm doing this to provide a healthy source of food for me and my family. This is how it's always been.
It's necessary.
And there's just a connection to that process. You're not as disconnected as going to a supermarket, because most of us still go to the supermarket, eat, don't worry about it. But there's a deeper connection to your food and deeper appreciation. Because I think a lot of it, we've just lost an appreciation for the abundance of food we have access to.
We throw away so much food, don't we? Waste so much food, which is terrible.
But how could we don't know any better, because all we've known, we've been so fortunate to have access to an abundance of resources in every realm, given where we live and the time we live.
And then when COVID happens, people grab 30 packets of toilet paper.
Where are your priorities?
There's no abundance.
It's so funny. That's such a imagine I can't wipe myself.
Yeah. What's going on with people when they're living in their homes, going through so much toilet paper if they can't get out? Is that how much people are using public bathrooms? They're waiting until they're in a public bathroom to use the toilet paper that they're not paying for. When the public bathroom's closed because of COVID, they have to get so much more toilet paper.
Yeah, it's very. That's what we do. Hey, toilet paper. That's the most important thing.
It's the fear. I think it's people reacting to, hang on, toilet paper's going down in the supermarkets. I better grab a load of toilet paper. And then it snowballs.
Yes.
It's not actually people, having to take away Indian and being stuck in their house and having to go through a load of toilet paper. It's just a fear factor. I reckon there's people still with stockpiles of toilet paper from COVID times.
You never know if it's going to happen again. I've got my 45 pack. It doesn't expire. We're good. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's 100% was it just 10 people started hoarding it. People like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have any toilet paper.
Yeah,
how am I going to wipe myself?
Yeah.
Well, you're stuck at home. Go have a shower after, whatever.
And it's almost a link back to what we're talking about people during the war. You look out for yourself first. You're not thinking about the wider public not having toilet paper. You go in there. I mean, it's a strange referencing toilet paper and hiding Jewish people in your attic, but looking out for yourself first, grabbing the toilet paper because the stockpile's going down, rather than thinking, I'm just going to grab one packet because it's all I need, and then someone else can have that packet. You're looking out for yourself and perhaps doing what is not socially right by others, to look out for yourself first.
Well, there is an argument that in the book I referenced before, Ordinary Men, it is outlining that these things start somewhere. The horrific things, that's the end point. But there are steps along the way that get you to that point. And the first one is, I'm the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then it just goes from there. Like, it doesn't have to go all the way to that extreme where you're being part of the final solution or whatnot. But it's starting from a point where there is a logical progression to that if you take it to its extreme. And I do think it's naive to think that, hey, that isn't a problem that people have just so quickly at such a small thing. Because I think even maybe it was when it was still the common belief that this might be really dangerous, but I don't think it was by that stage. I think it was an understanding that most of us are going to be okay from this virus. Elderly need to take more precaution, but it's actually not going to destroy the whole world.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning, it was
once the initial fear settled down. I mean, I remember driving in the car and listening to the news that was it Milan? I think it was an Italian city, was the first to completely shut down. I was like, oh, that's crazy. People are not being allowed to let out their houses. And then suddenly it was all of Italy. And then suddenly it was almost all of Europe. It was just the fear factor when COVID started was absolutely insane, wasn't it? And then obviously since then there's been reports about, was it that bad? All the deaths that were prescribed to being due to COVID perhaps were not actually the case. There were other reasons for the deaths, but they just labeled it as due to COVID to bump up the numbers when they weren't actually that high of a number.
Yeah.
The COVID due deaths.
I think it's pretty well understood now that that was the case, that most of the people who ended up, it was several comorbidities going on at the same time, and it was a lot less than they feared, which is, a great thing, but there was a huge, I think, overreaction, or at least for the period it lasted. Like, at some point, when are you going to let people just live their life and make their own decisions?
Yeah.
It just seemed like we were treating, or the public were treated like infants. Like they weren't allowed to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah. And how much of that was control from, the governments in those countries just trying to control people? I think we don't know enough about that. It's a bit too deep.
Oh, I mean, yeah. It could be that. It could just be like that, fear.
Yeah.
Like people in positions where they have control, they're going to exercise it to whatever degree they think is necessary. And in the moment, and retrospectively, I'm sure a lot of them have looked back and been like, okay, we overreacted. Next time we'll know a little bit better.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's hard to see what you're doing is being overreaching.
Yeah, because you're just consumed with that moment and dealing with the situation at the time.
Yeah.
And then obviously hindsight, it's easy to look back and say, oh, we did overreact a little bit.
That's right. It's easy from a revisionist perspective to go, everything was stupid.
Yeah.
But there were moments throughout where I was like completely like, what are we doing? Part of it, listening to podcasts and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it's
it was crazy. It was such a bizarre period of life, and it will always be known as that, won't it? Looking back on it in 50 years, the history books will say how strange COVID was, the way people had to live.
Do you think we've forgotten about it already, though?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, it's a blip, isn't it?
I
remember COVID when we couldn't leave our house.
Like I saw on the front of the paper the other day, is like, new strand of COVID-19 hitting. Still front newspaper. And I was like, okay.
But having said that, though, from our point of view in Australia, I know we didn't get it anywhere near as bad as United States and Europe and Asia.
Our lockdowns were nowhere near. We had a couple of week periods here and there.
It's not for us to look back on it and say, no, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad for us. We had it easy.
We can still look back on it. We can still make assessments, have our opinion. But we were fortunate for the most part. Even in Brisbane, like Melbourne and Sydney, they had
it worse.
They got locked out for large periods compared to what we did.
Yeah,
which is why a lot of people started moving to Brisbane. They're like, oh, a little bit more sunshine, a little bit more reasonable when it comes to these extreme circumstances. But yeah, it was an interesting time.
May we never go through it again.
Hopefully we won't. We won't. But I'm trying to think. That is interesting because now thinking about it, the COVID years are when I started to realize what mattered and what didn't.
Really?
Like 5 years ago, 25. That's about when I started to. My life is not in order. I wonder how much of it is. We're now in this extreme circumstance where, at the time, I was working part time and I was at uni. I didn't have the part time job anymore. I was just sitting at home
playing FIFA.
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
You're just opening FIFA packs day after day after day.
Yeah, well, I couldn't open FIFA packs. I wasn't getting the income coming in. So,
couldn't afford them.
But that was actually a moment where it was a catalyst for me to start actually thinking about things think about myself deeper than I was and about what I was doing and what I
Did
was
you have
going to do.
when did your first child come onto the scene?
Oh, it wasn't for till a few years after.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, after the tail end of it. But it certainly aligned my thinking in a way where it's like, no, okay, probably want a family. Probably want to figure out what I want to do work-wise, what I want to do career-wise. Part of having a child also was a catalyst for focusing in my attention on things and working harder. My productivity went up tenfold when I
Yeah.
had a child.
I suppose it also goes back to talking about looking out for yourself first, and that, as I understand it, I'm not fortunate to have my own child yet. Hopefully in the future, but your perspective changes, and it's no longer, you don't put yourself first. You put your child first, obviously.
It's framing it in, I need to make myself into something so I can support this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's all now shaped in, I don't want to be a loser for my kid. That's
Just for the record, Dino references first child as thing.
She'll
Just
appreciate
thing.
that one day. But when you first have it, it's like this little thing you don't know what to do with.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, oh my, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah.
No, I can't let this kid see me as a loser. I care too much about her. She needs to have a father who's competent. Like,
Yeah.
I needed to be competent. I didn't feel like I was. And it's still a work in progress for
To
sure.
be someone that she can look up to and, you know, aspire to be like, I suppose.
That's
Respect. And,
yeah, someone they respect, someone even that they admire for, like, you want to be, your kid's going to love you, especially if you're there. They're going to love you no matter what.
Yep.
But you do want to also model a way to be in the world. Like, if you want your child to be productive, the most thing you can do is be productive. You want them to care about certain things. A lot of when it comes to them developing, it's not what you tell them, it's what they see you doing.
Yeah.
So if they see you working hard and treating their mother right, all kinds of things like this, that's what they're going to pick up on. And either, if it's a really bad experience, they're either going to emulate it or have nothing to do with you. So,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
about
it's interesting.
being the role model.
For as long as I can remember, my biggest aspiration in life is to have my own family. I think that is the true mark of success for a man, is the quality of the family he has. And my dad is incredibly successful in that area. And, my mom and dad built a family that I aspire to have myself one day. So growing up in a happy household where mom and dad loved each other, showed love for one another, loved myself and my brother. I think that's why I just couldn't wait to have my own family. Hopefully I'm fortunate enough in the future to have a family, but yeah, I definitely know I'll be that type of person as you are, that you just want to be the best for your kid, to be a role model and inspiration to them and help them grow into whatever they're going to become.
It's a gift to have that influence from the
Yeah.
parents. My parents, they were working all the time to make sure we could do the things we wanted to, make sure I could play football, make sure we could do this, do that.
Yeah.
So it very much, it's like that part of me woke up when I had the child. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to work harder than I'm doing. I've got it in me. Like, what am I doing?
But also not letting you do whatever you want, because as you know, your lovely mother is going to be the celebrant at my wedding. So I've met your mum a few times, and she would tell me about how you'd be playing FIFA and she'd tell you to stop playing because she knew it wasn't good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was probably a blessing and a curse, but I was way too stubborn to listen. Like, especially when I hit 18, I would not listen.
Yeah.
Like, because you could have said anything to me, I wasn't going to listen. But again, that's also a blessing that I was able to, and I use the term blessing as not very religious, but it's just a turn of phrase.
Yeah.
It was a gift that I was able to recognize, at least by 25, but later than some, earlier than some, that a complete waste of time what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I had to get there on my own. I was too stubborn. I wouldn't listen to anyone.
Do you think your mum knew that you had to get there on your own? There was only so much she could do in terms of guiding you.
Yeah. She very much wasn't telling me to stop playing FIFA and all that for the last 3-4 years of that period, from 20 to 25. It was very much me. I was doing whatever I was doing. And I wouldn't have listened. She knew that.
Wasting time and effort telling you.
Yeah, she would occasionally say, "Why are you still in bed? Get up and go do something." And I'm like, oh, "No, I'm tired. I'm just
I had
gonna
a late night
sleep."
playing FIFA, mom.
Yeah,
Leave me alone.
I can't believe the night I had. Just leave me be. But no, I'm glad she was not pushy. It wouldn't have worked. I would have
Yeah.
just probably
Yeah.
grown to
Rebelled
resent
even
her.
more,
Yeah,
perhaps. And,
that's right.
yeah.
And she knew enough to do that.
Yeah.
She's too busy. She's working, emulating what I should be doing, like actually going out and doing things.
Which is what you're doing now. You know, I know that you've got a primary full time job, and you're also doing something on the side to help benefit your own family. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's like there was something in me. That gene just needed to be activated, and it was having the child that actually triggered that. And I think it does. I think it's the going from no responsibility to the most responsibility you can
Possibly
have.
yeah.
And you've got it or you don't. That switch is going to flip on, or it's not. You better hope it flips on for the sake of you and your family. Because I'm sure there's plenty out there who that doesn't switch when they have the child. And like, I feel like that's a tough way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want that overwhelming feeling of I'm compelled to do more to help my family. One, survive, but do well. Like, to do well, you want more than just the bare minimum.
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? For your family to do the best they can. Yeah.
Yeah, and you to be a positive influence on that. You to
The captain of the ship, perhaps.
yeah,
Steering in the right direction.
it's going to be fun as they grow up, trying to actually figure out how to guide them in the best way, because it's not telling them what to do. I know for myself that I couldn't have been told what to do, especially I say from 20, but probably from 15 I stopped actually listening.
But also not letting them run riot and just do whatever they want.
That's
as
right.
kids will do if they don't have any kind of guidance.
Yeah, expectation I think is key, but also I think when it depends. When a kid hits 18, when they hit 16, a huge element of it is their friend group. That you stop being their major. You stop being their major influence probably at the age of, what is it? No, I think it's maybe even as soon as they start high school. Maybe it's great.
Going through puberty.
Yeah, maybe it's 11, 12.
Yeah.
You no longer are the key element in shaping them into what they're going to be. It's the people they're surrounded by most, which is the ones at school, and they just stop listening to you.
Is that because you think they want to, typically kids at that age, do their best to fit in with their peers? So they become malleable to who they're with on a day-to-day basis at school. Obviously, typically, kids that age are at school. So the friends they have around them, they want to be like them to be appreciated by their friends.
That's right. The socially conforming is a necessary developmental step in order to be likable, so you have lots of friends going forward. It's hugely important. That's why it's hard for the kids who isolate themselves, and it's tougher for a deeply introverted person if they aren't able to form any connection. It's socially very difficult.
How much do you think family traditions can influence someone? Do you have a lot of traditions in your own family with your own kids versus the traditions you had growing up with your parents?
In terms of traditional things we do, we haven't really established any in our little one yet. I think they're too young, but I have started thinking about it. Like, what are the things we want to be staples going forward? Part of the main family tradition we had growing up was we would have family dinners every Saturday night the whole time I was a child with mum's side of the family. That was the tradition.
Right.
You didn't miss family dinner until you were like 16, 17, 18, but you had to have a good enough reason to miss it. So their tradition was keeping close with the family. In terms of other traditions, there wasn't really many. We would go to church on Easter and Christmas.
Yep.
Like, my grandfather's a priest, but I stopped believing probably around 15, 16. So I kind of stopped participating in those traditions. But also, it wasn't like a traditional thing where we would go every weekend to church. So we had very few actual family traditions, but it was, you just go and you have dinner with your mum's side of the family every Saturday night. That was a core staple. But I do like that idea. I think I want something like that.
Traditions are important.
Yeah, for us, in terms of it's something the kids can come back to.
It offers stability,
That's right.
an
They've
added,
got
an
that.
added sense of stability.
You have a few traditions in your family?
Yeah, Christmas is a huge thing, as it is for many families, but we've got a lot of traditions around Christmas, um, especially since leaving the UK. Mum and Dad were very keen on making Christmas a big thing for us. Obviously, in the UK, we'd either go to my grandma's house, my nana and granddad would come round for a bit, we'd see other parts of the family. Obviously, you can't do that when you're on the other side of the world. So they made a big deal out of having traditions on Christmas Eve. We'd have a specific, my mum calls it nibbly tea, where it gets loads of little hors d'oeuvres. We put it all over the big coffee table that we move into the living room. We sit down. We watch 2 films. It used to be Home and Away 1 and 2 back to back. Got a little tired of that, so now we pick and choose the films that we watch on Christmas Eve, play a game, and then Christmas Day we'd wake up, and our tradition now, which has been the case for the last maybe 6 years, everyone dresses up, you get your own outfit, and they've become more and more elaborate over the years. My mum was dressed up as a Christmas tree, as a big sack of presents. My fiance was, I think, Santa Claus this year or the year before. But yeah, so dressing up in an outfit is a big tradition. And then the way we open presents, you grab one from the tree, read it out, whoever it's to, and we'd all watch that person open their present. It's always been the same. So present opening is kind of a ritual as well. It's not just all guns blazing. And then throughout the day, we'd play games, have some more, nibbly food. So there's a lot of traditions around Christmas. But growing up as a kid, we'd always go camping on long weekends. We'd go to a place called Anglesey, which was about 2 hours or 3 hours from where we lived. And every summer we'd go down to Cornwall, which is the southwest tip of the UK, if anyone's familiar with the shape of it. We'd go there for our summer holidays in a caravan. And I think those regular holidays, when it was the 4 of us 24/7 with each other, bonding, playing board games, going to the beach, going for bike rides, helped the family knit together really well as a kid. So when I became a teenager, when a lot of people tend to rebel against their parents, I didn't feel like I wanted to, because we were all so well bonded with each other. We enjoyed spending time with each other, I think, because largely to do with the holidays we went on camping in caravans. And that's obviously carried through to adulthood. We all enjoy spending time together. When we're all together, we play board games. So yeah, for me, tradition in families is a big thing in helping the family stay close with one another.
It seems like a lot of your tradition, it's like playful as well. It's
Yeah,
you're
definitely
enjoying your
a
time
lot of
together.
fun and laughter is kind of at the core of our family, I would say. Yeah,
The
which is nice.
playfulness is so important.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing I lack in terms of like incorporating playfulness enough, because like you got to
I
have
can't
fun.
imagine you playing charades.
Yeah, I've been told I'm not very fun sometimes, and
You'd be
perhaps
great
it's
at
true.
doing Ice Age.
I've got one niche, and it's woolly mammoths. That's all I can do. Yeah, playful traditions.
Is that something you're interested in? Because I think if you're not that playful, you don't want to take part. You're happy not being in the games, or would you want to be more playful in nature with your family in terms of playing board games and being silly?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because like I wouldn't want to be any different than I am.
Yeah.
I like who I am.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
enough. Well, I'm plenty self-critical, but I don't think I would. The amount of playfulness I engage with is probably the amount of playfulness I want to engage with
All
now.
right, yeah.
I know myself well enough to yes or no to whatever I want to do. But I could certainly use some more playfulness incorporating with the kids in putting traditions in place. I think I will. I think they're just too young at the moment to like we'll play together, but having
Yeah.
like fun traditions, that's something that's worth establishing. Because I think it's fun. You don't want it to be all serious when you're just with your family.
No.
You want fun. And even in my family, like the Saturday nights, we'd play cards,
Yeah.
we'd play games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of it was that it's the having fun with your family, not just showing up.
Yeah. Having that balance of everything in the family is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can certainly have serious moments with the family. You know, my mom, I would say more I would go to if I'm having a troubling time. She's always been, both my mum and dad have always been there for me, but mum is more active in having those deep conversations with me if she knows that I'm going through a troubling time. But on the flip side, we can have so much fun playing games and yeah.
So you've had that kind of relationship where you're able to really delve deep with your parents about what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that I would shy away from talking with my parents about, um, which I think is a good thing. People might feel uncomfortable about that with their parents. Totally fine. Obviously, everyone's different. But for me, um, it was always a big thing knowing that if I was going through a troubling time, whether it was dealing with emotions or stress, conflicts of interest, whatever it was, I'd be able to talk to my mum and dad and have rational conversations and help support me emotionally and help me think things through clearly and guide me where I needed to be.
That's interesting. I think that's so useful. I don't think, and this is all me. I don't know if I've ever like deeply opened up with my parents. I've
Yeah.
never. Mm. I think that's
Can't
good though. I
remember.
think that's what I would want my kids to come to me with.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's them being standoffish. I think it's just me. Takes a lot to you got to pull
I
it
think,
out of me.
yeah, I think it's largely down to your parents engaging with you first. Because if they don't show you that they're going to be there for you to have those conversations and be actively interested in having those conversations, I think as a kid, you're not going to feel confident enough to be the one to approach your parents. I remember more recently going back to leaving architecture, I was battling with it in my head. Obviously, spending 5 years, a lot of money studying at university to pursue this career. And when I was in it, I think I realized that certainly the environment I was in wasn't for me. Not saying it was bad, it just wasn't for me. But I was struggling with the decision to leave architecture because I saw it as me giving up or backing out of hard times, like almost waving the white flag. I saw it as a sign of weakness, and I was struggling with talking to my mum about it because my mum and dad were obviously immensely proud of going through, getting my master's degree, getting my dream job. So for them, I was done. They'd done their job. They'd led me to my dream career. I was in it. I was starting my life as moving towards being an architect. So I knew the conversation was going to be difficult because I was essentially saying, I'm doing a 180. I'm turning around. I'm not sure I want to keep going down that path. But at the same time, I knew that my mum wouldn't be angry with me in that decision. And sure enough, when I spoke to her about it, I mean, the day that I confronted her about how I was feeling, I just broke down in tears. Because I've been bottling it up for so long, for many months, the decision trying to leave. And knowing that my mum would be the person to help rationalize my thoughts, guide me in the way I needed to. It was an emotional time, and I just broke down. And her seeing how much it was affecting me, absolutely supported my decision to, at least at that time, leave that place of work, which was massive for me to get. It's not the approval, is it? But the support from my parents that helped me know that I was making the right decision to leave that workplace. And then since then, I've just been so much happier.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing is the support. I think that's what I got from my parents too. Even though I didn't open up that much, they're very supportive of what I was when I would choose to do something. It was the radical encouragement of keep going, you'll work it out, you're doing well, keep going, we're proud of you, keep going. It's
So from both of us, well done, Mum and Dad. Thank you. You did great.
And like I said, for me, for a lot of people, it is perhaps the parents didn't engage enough, and that's why I'm not willing to open up. Mum would try all the time. I'm just
Mums are nosy, aren't they?
I'm just so stubborn.
They always want to be in your business.
Like, I'm so stubborn when it comes to that. I don't talk about myself or how I'm feeling much at all, like ever.
Is that because you don't want to give them the burden of what you're going through? You don't want to add that weight to their shoulders, or it's just, no, it's my business?
It's neither. It's I don't know how to explain it,
Right.
but it's perhaps I've never been, and I'm fortunate in this, where it's never been so overwhelming that I've needed to offload.
Yeah. Okay.
I think for whatever reason, my temperament is very like steady a lot, where it doesn't get deeply bad. And I'm thankful for this because I'm having not experienced it. I've learned enough and I've seen enough of how bad it can be when it's just overwhelming negative emotion. I'm just fortunate where I don't seem to experience that a heavy amount.
Yeah. I noticed that in you because we obviously work at the same place, and throughout day-to-day work duties, you're far more just calm and whatever. Nothing seems to worry you at all, whereas those around you can get stressed out and worked up about some things, whereas you're just like, yeah, it's all right.
Well, yeah,
It is what it is.
Part of that's a radical delusional confidence and I'll work everything out. Part of that was crippling for my 20s where I just didn't do anything because I'll figure it out later. But I am thankful that I've got that temperament.
I'm just thinking of a case example of that when I think it was for the first Black Friday that I worked for us, and you had forgotten or not ordered enough boxes of the 2 Pros. Obviously, a lot of people won't know what I'm talking about, but you essentially hadn't ordered enough boxes to fulfill the orders. So we had to use the next size up for a long time. And you were just like, yeah, whatever, fine. I would have been like freaking out, like, oh my God, I've forgotten to order the boxes.
And internally, I was not happy with myself about that.
But you didn't let it get to you and rile you up.
What's it going to achieve? Yeah, like what?
Yeah, exactly. And I completely agree with you. Like when I get emotional, worked up about things, it achieves nothing. But I can't help how I feel. Like I react to other people's behavior a lot, which is completely pointless. There's no reason for me to react like that because I can't do anything about it. They're going to be how they are, and I'm only causing myself concern and pain and grief by allowing myself to get there. But I find it hard managing myself and being able to just be like, no, whatever, doesn't matter. It's not me. It doesn't bother me.
That can be tough, but I think that's why I was also drawn to psychology. I'm like, well,
yeah,
I'm quite even. I'm able to see when other people are doing certain things and it's not creating a huge emotional response in me. Can I help other people get to that? Yeah, I think I have the temperament to be able to tolerate a lot, so I want to try.
Because I would say one of the biggest differences between you and I is how emotional I am, and you're not a particularly emotional person. I think you would agree.
Yes.
Do you reckon that must be a big part of how I react to things, with emotion first, whereas you're maybe not laid back, but you don't react in the way I would. You're just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. It'll be fine. You're more rational in your thinking.
I think I still have the initial emotional response. I just don't think it's to the intensity of what yours clearly is.
And do you think therefore I can't do anything about it? Because I believe that being emotional I'm always going to be an emotional person. You know, when I watch films or something on TV, I cry, and I can't. It's impossible for me to manage that. I try my best sometimes. I'm like, why am I crying that this man has just had his jukebox restored by a workshop that plays the song that he and his wife danced to on their wedding night? I tear up when I watch that, and I can't stop it. But my brother, no emotion. He can be emotionless as a stone when he's watching something. It's amazing. Like with football, I will jump up and down and scream, and he'll be sat at the couch like, woo.
That's me. I'm your brother.
Yeah. So it's what I'm saying is I don't think I could ever change that, and therefore perhaps I couldn't I don't know if I've got the ability to not react to other people's actions because it's my emotional side that reacts to it first.
I think you can always get better
Mhm.
in the degree to which you respond. The baseline, it's probably going to be where you're always going to react more emotional than I would in that. And that's just temperamentally for whatever reason. You're just a more emotional
Yeah.
person. So you won't be able to offset it. The initial emotion will always be there at first. But I think your degree or the capacity to recognize why it is that you're responding that way and in a way rationalize yourself out of it, that can definitely get better.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, people who go into a rage can never fix that.
Yeah.
People who respond super emotionally to things always have a justification for it because, like, well, it's just how I am. No, I think there are strategies and there are techniques.
Yeah.
I think a lot of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is recognizing the thoughts or recognizing the things that are causing you to have these strong emotional responses
Mm.
and being able to essentially repackage those in a way where either the emotional response isn't as extreme the next time or it doesn't go for as long a period as it does the next time, and teaching yourself to when you have this emotional response to think about it in a different way, that each time you have that response it tapers off a little and gets a little easier to manage.
Yeah. There's examples I can think of where, because I know I'm like that. I know I respond with emotion first, and I can get angry at things that shouldn't make me angry. And I've recognized that actually because I get this from my dad, and I've recognized when I get angry or react to things like how my dad would, and when he used to do it, I'd be like, "God, stop reacting like that. You're such a drama queen." So I recognize that in myself, and I try to nip it in the bud. Um, but there's other things that I've recognized that annoy me when they shouldn't do. Examples like pushing a trolley around a supermarket and there's people in the way and they're just stood looking at the back of a rice packet trying to read the macronutrients of it. You're in the way. Get out of the way. I get riled up because I just want to go past you. But my partner, Jess, she would, say, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. We'll just move around them. So she's in examples helped me tolerate things better because obviously I shouldn't get worked up about someone standing in my way in an aisle of a supermarket. They've got just as much right to stand there as I do. So, and walking through shopping centers when people stand four abreast in an aisle and you can't get past, and I just think, God, you plonkers, why you stood side by side, stand in a single file. So there are times when I've recognized it in myself and I shouldn't be reacting like that, and stopping myself before I get, I wouldn't say angry, but worked up, reacting to it. I stop it before it happens. So I think there's occasions where I do recognize it, and yeah, hopefully I can keep teaching myself.
Well, it is something that can definitely be improved upon,
Yeah.
but you got to figure out what the factors are that are influencing it. Like you could be at a slightly heightened level of anxiety because you're just not sleeping well for a long period of time.
Right.
And then it becomes even more difficult to manage. So this is why like working with someone who knows how to go through all the steps, work out, all right, is it this, and then here are some strategies. The strategies will work to like if you apply them properly to help taper it. But there could be so many different underlying things like getting to that, which may help more than any of it. But the things you can definitely do is try to reframe it. But the actual strategy to doing that is tough and requires actual deliberate effort and work.
Yeah.
But you don't have to always be irritated by these things. There is a peace down the road if most of the time, if you can apply it in the right way.
Well, you're giving me hope, that I can progress to a happier future that has less stress and anger in it.
I do think so. I do think
Yeah.
almost everyone is capable of reducing their level of emotional response to things.
Not being so hot-headed in
Yes.
situations.
Yeah. And you're going to be at first a lot of the time. Like your response is going to be emotion. You always have that emotional response first. You can't stop that.
Yeah.
But you can manage how long it
Managing
goes for. and perhaps taper it the next time if you're deliberate with it.
I don't know if that will ever work with football and England losing in finals and getting knocked out. Because I remember when we lost the Euro final, God, that was so difficult for me to take. I could not get over it for a long time. The day it happened, I remember just walking into the other living room, just laying on the floor, looking up at the ceiling. Just, I couldn't get over it. The emotion of the moment of the defeat and England not winning a trophy again, I couldn't get over it.
And you wouldn't want to trade that for
Yeah,
a complete even kill of emotion.
No. Because you have to, as a true sports fan, you have to go through the lows. Hopefully there will be some highs. As an Everton and an England fan, there's many lows more recently. But yeah, I think going through those lows as a football fan means that you get to appreciate the highs, and you're worthy of appreciating the highs when they come around, as opposed to being a glory supporter. You know, if you support Real Madrid and Manchester City, what's the point? Because you're just supporting the best teams in the world, and you're just chasing the wins.
Yeah, you only feel the highs, you don't appreciate it. That's the thing. If you have everything, you're not going to appreciate the little things you get along the way. But I think there is a trade-off when it comes to your level of emotion. You wouldn't want to pull that back completely, like, at all. I think it's just different ways of being. There's nothing wrong with being more emotional. It's just, if it's the negative emotion, you can do things to taper it, but you probably wouldn't trade the level of emotion you get in the good moments for anything. Like, you wouldn't take the trade-off probably of the lows, bring it all back to
they make it worth it,
don't feel the highs. Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least I feel they do. Definitely make it worth it.
Yeah, well, it's the idea that you can't appreciate funny things unless you know what's unfunny, or you can't appreciate easy things unless you've gone through hard things.
It's true.
You need some kind of reference point.
Yang.
You need a reference point, or else everything's just okay.
Yeah.
Which could be very mundane and
boring. Yeah.
All right, so Slam or Sam. We never got into the name issue, but maybe there'll be a time for it in the past.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to share? You got an Instagram, push your art, or anything like that you want to?
Well, if people are interested in the strange description I gave of my art, it's Bruchez Designs. My last name, Bruchez Designs on Instagram. If you're interested in checking out, hop on there and have a look. But yeah, other than that, I really appreciate you inviting me on, having you on the podcast. I understand that I'm one of your first guests.
Number two.
Yeah,
Number two.
Does that mean I can claim that I'm part of your experimental phase?
Yeah, well, you're part of the up and coming. You're the at the root, the core, the foundation. So.
Have fun.
Well, thank you very much.
Love it. Thanks, Dino.
Ciao.